Welcome back to Exquisitely Aligned. I'm Gina Meyer Vincent, your host and your master motivator, here to help inspire you to live your most magnificent future. Today, my guest, Ken Foster, has become exactly what the world is missing. For the last 30 years, Ken D. Foster has worked as a transformational leader, master business and life coach, Vedic scientist, and human potential expert. He is critically acclaimed best-selling author who writes about self-development, practical psychology, Eastern philosophy, business, money, relationships, and integrated practices. He owns a media company and is the executive producer of the Voices of Courage show, which is syndicated on TV, podcast, radio, and broadcasted in 185 countries. He is also the network president of E360 Television. He is a change maker who helps people take the path of courage to realize their essence, maximize their highest potential, and see the unseeable, know the unknowable, and do the impossible. Welcome, Ken. I am so delighted to have this conversation with you today.
So good to be here with you, Gina. I'm looking forward to an inspiring and uplifting conversation for your audience so that they can maybe shift some of their paradigms that they're living in.
Yes, absolutely. We love that. And thank you for having me recently on your show. It was a great pleasure to meet you. And thank you to Cheryl out there, Dr. Cheryl, who connected us. So I learned a few things on your show about you, and then we had a little discussion afterwards. And it was fun for me. It's always fun for me to meet people who are like-minded and like-hearted out there doing amazing things in the world. So I'm excited about this conversation. I know that for me, life has been full of twists and turns. And I believe it's in those moments that we have the ability to make a decision. Are we going to let this take us down, or are we going to go ahead and allow it to, turn into something, I was going to say beautiful, handsome, magical, whatever the right word is. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey? Because I don't think we just wake up and everything's peaches and rosy. So.
Well, sure. I'd love to do that. And my awakening, I'll call it, started in 1992. When I say awaken, what I mean by that is I went from a place of just walking through life pretty unconscious. And what I mean by unconscious is that pre-programmed thing. Like, I was told I should go to college. I was told I should get married at one point, and I had some children at one point, and buy a house and not get a nice job, and all that was really programmed in my thinking in childhood, and for better or not. I mean, I'm not making it wrong. It's just that's what was in my mind, and so I got to a place in my life where I had started from scratch with a group of people, an organization within the Bank of America organization, and we built that business up to, in my area, about $200 million annual sales. In the first 2 years, I was making a lot of money. I was spending every dime. And, I had surrounded myself with friends that I would call lower companions. And, my relationships weren't working. I was estranged from my first wife and my children. And, it wasn't going well. So I thought, well, I'll go get some counseling about this. And I was in counseling for about a year. And then I started hearing this little voice. And the voice said, "You've got to feel the pain to make the change." And I was like, I've never heard anything like that. So I took it to my counselor and said, "Hey, doc, I'm hearing this voice." And he looked at me. He was a very powerful man. Yeah, he looked at me with his steel blue eyes and his silver hair. And he kind of looked like a Carl Jung-cut figure sitting in his chair, and I'm on his couch. And he says, "Ken, I can do no more for you. You have to follow that voice." And as I walked out of now remember, I've been with him for a year. So is that it? And I walked out of the office. I thought, does he not like me anymore? Does he just don't think I'm? Why would he tell me that? He could have told me anything, right? This guy. Yeah. But he said, follow the voice. And that was the voice I eventually understood. That was the voice of truth. It was the voice of
Yes.
courage. And that voice led me to, that day I did the most painful thing I ever did in my life up to that point, which is I walked into a recovery meeting that afternoon and got some recovery for my alcohol and my drugs and my stinking drinking and everything else. And so that started a new journey. I woke up at that moment. I didn't even know I was waking up, but I did. And thank God for that counselor, Gina. I mean, really, he could have kept taking my money for years. He knew at that moment, I was in enough pain, and I guess he sensed it. And I made the right choices. So that's where I started from, and then everything changed, right?
Yeah, I love that you had that awareness to listen to that voice and to share it outwardly to someone else of that stature. Because I think sometimes people think, if I tell somebody I'm hearing a message, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? Where I love when I hear somebody's got a message, and such a clear one. I mean, I think you said you've got to hear,
feel the pain to make
feel the pain to make the change.
Gina, for me, it was, I was in that place where I didn't want to feel any more pain. Are you kidding? Nothing's working in my life, right? And I'm struggling. I'm suffering. I'm going through a really hard time. And, I'm self-medicating because I have so much stress and conflict in my life, right?
Yeah.
So, but I knew in my heart that was the voice of truth. And, of course, that voice, I follow that voice for everything I do today. But at the time, I didn't know what that was. So, but I think your point is well taken. Our audience, and you're right. A lot of people, I said that to a counselor who I felt safe talking to. Because if I would have told that to some of my friends or maybe even parents, they would have said, "You're crazy. You're nuts."
Or someone at the bank, right? They would have been like,
someone at the bank has said, "Well, this guy's hearing voices. We're going to have to terminate his contract."
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that wouldn't have been pretty. Yeah. That definitely would have been really painful. Yeah. But I do believe we get stuck in this. I mean, we're born in this world where it begs for us to conform, like you said, to check off those boxes, to listen to this outer authority of this is what you do, Ken. When you're at this age, you should have this. Check. Next, check. And I don't know if I shared this on your show, but I almost married the wrong man because I was in a place where I was checking those boxes very diligently and in a timely manner. And I had graduated college, had my career, was relocated with my career from New York City to Charlotte, North Carolina. And it didn't quite feel right. And I think I wasn't grounded at that point because I was like a fish out of water there. You could imagine back then my hair kind of covered one eye. It was short like this. People would come, "Can I touch your hair? Where are you from?" I was like, "New York." "No, what country?" "New York." But back then Charlotte wasn't as much a melting pot as it is today. And, and I got engaged and I couldn't look myself in the mirror. When I washed my face, thank goodness I have full lips because I could kind of get the lipstick in the lines without looking in the mirror. But I just realized when I was brushing my teeth, why can't you look at yourself? And it was because I knew this wasn't, even though I felt like it was the right time for me to get married, I didn't feel like he was the right guy. And when I went to him and I put it to him, "What percentage are you sure you want to marry me?" He said 80. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're young, we're healthy, we have very few bills. I had a condo, you know what I mean? I had a cat and a rabbit, life was good, no pain, no gray hair, no aging parents, no screaming colic babies. We both had jobs and I thought, yeah, this isn't going to work. And thankfully, I listened to that voice. But how did I get to that place where I was so off kilter? You know what I mean? And so how did you, it sounds like the career just became, I'm assuming the people I knew who worked in the banks when I was in Charlotte, the hours were super long and a lot was expected of them.
It was, I think a lot of people are living my life that I lived in the past. In fact, I know that. So it wasn't necessarily about the career. It wasn't necessarily about how who my parents were, how they raised me. It wasn't necessarily about a lot of things. What it was about was that I lived in this society that today, we have a society of information, right? If you want more information, just Google, right? But we really we live in a society that doesn't need more information; it needs wisdom, and wisdom doesn't. And I'm not talking about, sure, we can get wisdom from others. Some people are going to get some insights today. But if I inspire you, what's going to happen is that it's going to be something that's triggered inside of you. And you're going to go, you know what? I think I want to explore that more. Yeah. Because it triggers something in you, just as that little voice triggered in me. But here's the point. Right now, we live in a society that's even going faster than when I grew up. We're going from we've got TikTok, we've got Reels, our information, we want it within the first minute. If it's not there, we want to move on. It's that piece that keeps us stuck in a paradigm and paradigms that don't work for us. Right. So what I've been coaching over 30 years, and what I found with my clients is there's one key to it. One key to success, right? That I'd like to give you. It's very simple and yet hard to implement. It's slow down to succeed. It's slow down. It's like, take that time. For me, I had to go to basics, Gina. You probably did too. I had to learn how to allow myself to get still and allow my mind to slow down. I had to learn, for me, I learned to meditate. Yeah. For me, I learned to be in nature. For me, I learned to journal. I had to do some things like that. You probably did the same because, it's nothing different between us. I mean, if you want to slow down, there are tools that we're talking about right now that's how you do this, right? And what the point is to get out of the mind. Get out of our mind. Yes.
Ken, you have a lovely voice. Can you please tell my husband that? Because this is a conversation I have. I'm like, here. Let's move it here. Let's move it here. He's such an intellectual, and it's all over his charts that he is that person. But it's like that monkey mind just keeps going. So I'm wondering if maybe from a deeper voice with your beautiful smile, that maybe he'll get it.
Well, listen, us guys, it can be very, very intellectual. I'm very intellectual. I'm very logical. I'm very. I can think things through to the nth degree, and that's fine. The mind is a tool that we use, but if we're in our mind all the time, then we're out of balance, quite frankly. Yes. We're in a place where, and we believe that the mind is the be all end all. If you're not intellectual, you're not someone that you want to talk to if you're an intellectual. It's so opposite of that. Because where wisdom lies is not in our mind. The wisdom lies in the heart. The wisdom lies in the soul. The wisdom lies as the observer of the mind. The observer of the mind. That's where the wisdom starts coming in. And we're talking about it in words, but quite frankly, when we tune into higher realms of consciousness, if we want to shift our paradigms, we get still. And it's not conveyed to us usually in words. It's conveyed to us in a feeling, in a sense of this is the way to go. For some it's words. Okay, some are very auditory, but even the words have they have a vibration or an energy or just you have a knowing when you're connected to the soul and you feel it. And you feel it. You for me, I like to be with it for a little bit. Right? Yeah. I don't always act. I mean, I hear the voice. I don't always act. I'm like, really? Feel the pain to make the change. Is that really what I want to do? No, I want to go party. Right? I don't want to feel anything. But that little voice has got me to be a triathlete. Okay. Yeah. I've done many triathlons. How did I do that? Well, it's not comfortable to wake up at 4 a.m. and train. It's not
Right.
comfortable. It feels maybe painful to, get on a bike and pump for miles and miles and miles. It is painful. You have to
Right.
train your muscles. Go to the gym, right? To work out.
Right. Right.
But eventually, what is kind of funny because the pain transitions.
Right.
At first, it feels painful, but it transitions into joy, quite frankly.
Yeah.
We live in duality. We live in pain and pleasure, up and down, right and left, light and dark. We live in duality. So it's quite interesting. Can we transition reality? We can by doing what I suggest, right?
Right.
You can say, well, okay, so let's say you want to create a business. Business comes with a lot of pain and struggle and challenges. What's all the pain and struggle about? Really what it's about us learning, getting out of our way, learning something new, stepping into something that feels uncomfortable, feels like the unknown, right?
Yeah.
Being able to develop whatever muscles that we need, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritual muscles, so that we can move into that business, for instance, and start, I can't say how many people I've interviewed, after a couple of years in business, they come to me as a coach, hey, we need some help. I said, well, listen, would you start your business if you'd known what you knew now? And all of them said, no. If I'd known what I had to go through. So
it's true, right?
Isn't that true, Gina? But we're letting go. It's like this letting process and this growth and evolution process.
Yeah.
And that, of course, what they know in 2 years in business, or what I knew or you knew too, we built a lot of muscle. We're a lot stronger person than we were in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of my little point there. But I will say this. I've worked with a lot of business owners over the years, and they all want me to write a marketing plan, develop a business plan. Today, okay, this is kind of funny, but I had somebody say, I really need a book marketing plan. I said, hey, no worries. I'll get it right to you. I had it to them within a minute, right? I put in their name. I put in some things that I need to in Chat GPT, and boom, it read it out, and I wrote it to them. They wrote me back, oh, you're a genius. This is amazing. Wow, you've put a whole marketing plan. We're going to follow this.
Yeah.
My point is this. You can do all the marketing plans, you can create all the business. You can do everything on the outside today almost instantly.
Yeah.
But so what? I can create that marketing plan for that person, but if they haven't shifted on the inside and they don't know they don't have the wisdom to follow the plan and follow their own intuition around that plan, take the steps, because they have to let go of some little beliefs that tell them that I'm limited, I can't do this. If they can't have that piece, they don't shift inside, right, Gina? You will not shift outside. I don't care how many plans and how many great ideas you have and everything. If you don't shift on the inside, it'll never happen. That's what I know.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you brought, the intuition, because I think sometimes, yes, a specific plan, a template may have worked for someone, but you're right. If they don't shift within or tweak it, those little tiny, often it's like the volume on an old fashioned radio, maybe it's not 8.5, it's 8 for you. Maybe it's a little more of, 20% more of this for you versus someone else, because your life is different and you want your business model different. And I think always running whatever advice we're receiving past our inner authority. How does this feel? Is this right for me at this moment? Or do I need to go in this direction just ever so slightly? I think oftentimes it's little things and listening to that inner piece of, does it feel right? I know I had business coaches in the past where I was like, this doesn't feel like me. This doesn't feel like what the business model I align with, and I think it's important to find a coach, find a mentor that understands what your desires are and where you want to grow and what you want to accomplish, who you want to touch, how you want to impact them, Is it local? Is it global? Like having a television show and podcast, having your books, etc. I mean, then you're global all of a sudden, and that's the exciting piece. So that's awesome.
Well, I think I bless that. Let me bless that with you, because you really tapped on something there. If you hire a coach, let's say you hire a life coach or a business coach or a health coach, most of them have gone to schools now. They've learned the basics of, how to be a life coach, how to be a business coach. Some of them have a little more experience than others, like myself, 30 years experience, right? But ultimately, if I'm hiring somebody, I want somebody that has realized wisdom, developed intuition. Everybody has intuition. We're all born with intuition. Most people call it a gut feeling, but I have to tell you, most people have undeveloped intuition. They may be right 40% of the time, 30% of the time. But, if I'm hiring a coach, I want somebody that's done the inner work, that has the wisdom and experience in the field that I'm in. So I just want to throw that out there, because
I agree with all of that. I think that I agree. We are all born with intuition. I think life, food, beliefs, etc., can take us away from listening to that. I think that, when you work with somebody who has very keen sense of intuition, I know for me, I don't know how it shows up for you. For me, it shows up in different ways. But when I hear a client speak, I'll get goosebumps in certain ways that tell me, yes, this is a truth, great, or no, that's a truth, but they believe it. That's false, but they believe it to be true. And then we go down a path of, like exploration, like, hold on, wait. I had one client who I was like, yeah, I think this is a worthiness issue, centuries old pandemic of worthiness. And sure enough, as we did the deep dive, just because of the way I felt these goosebumps, I was like, there's something here that we need to unearth, kind of clean up, rearrange, and like you said, shift the paradigm, shift the messaging, should get her to a different place and space. And I mean, it's not something that happens instantaneously. It took her to go back and do the work, which she did such a beautiful job. I asked her the other day, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on that worthiness? She had started at a 4. And I said, are you a 12 now? And she started laughing. She goes, yeah, how'd you know? I was like, yeah, because I can, you can see it and hear it in someone's voice, even over the phone. You can also sense it in someone's text, when you're connected and intuitive, there's that. How do you feel it when you're working with your clients?
I feel it in several ways. I sense it like you do. I'm clairaudient, so I hear it. I'm empathic, so I feel it, and it's for me. It's very interesting to talk about this. I don't talk about this to most people. I don't know if I've ever even talked about it on air, but for me, it's a place where there's a knowing. And I as soon as when I hear a false belief or something that's running in their head, I instantly know it. In the early days, it took a lot of courage for me to call them on it. Like you, it's like, oh, they got self-esteem issues. Am I going to bring that up? But today
I'm like, hey, let's go here. Yeah, I know it's sometimes I tell people, hey, you might not like me for saying this, but I think we need to, and in the end, they always come back very grateful and, cheering me on and sending me clients and referring me to their gardener, everyone, but I think it's when we have that courage to share, like you're talking about, you get to impact someone's life on a level that allows for change for the rest of their lives. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about 60 years from now, 50 years from now, they're that one message that you shared and uncovered for them. I mean, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, like I was sort of saying earlier, we live in this paradigm of a duality paradigm, right?
Yeah.
Like I described that earlier. And if I were to use an analogy around that with some of the clients that come in, I bet you can relate to this. So if we say that sand on one hand is kind of the I don't know, negative qualities of the world, and sugar is the goodness, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you were to take fine grained sand and fine grained sugar and you mix it together in one big pot, right? The question for my clients that I have for them is, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the sand? Focusing on the sugar? And inevitably, and where I'm going with it is inevitably, when they start to shift and they start to look at what they're grateful for, they start to look at the other people, they let go of their judgments of others, and they start seeing the gifts, the talents, the abilities that people bring into their lives when they see their own goodness. When they start seeing business as not a challenge, a great all the problems, you start looking at, wow, those problems all bring gifts to me, man. I have, and you start seeing from that paradigm, everything starts to shift. Yeah. And we've been so programmed, really unconscious programming, like I said earlier, where we're just going from one thing to the next. We're not reflecting and taking time to tune into our own brilliance. Leonardo da Vinci, greatest creators, most creative person in the Renaissance, right? He said, isolation is the price of greatness. Isolation. Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, one of the greatest sages of our time, that came here in 1924 in America. His teaching is spread around the world. The first yogi that ever wrote about what a yogic path is even about, right? In his autobiography, The Yogi. Anyway, he said, stillness is the price of greatness. These two great masters of consciousness are guiding us and saying, listen, slow down. I'm saying, slow down to succeed.
Right.
If your husband's listening, listen to your wife's intuition to develop your own.
Well, that's rule number one in our house, is that he needs to listen to that intuition. It goes back to a time where we were at a very packed room dinner function with all the medical doctors in the community for family practice. And one of the gentlemen was at the mic. He was the president that year. And I said, I don't trust him. And my husband was like, and sure enough, over time, Mark saw, and even one of his residents who we became friends with came back and he was like, you were right. And I said, the minute he started speaking, that I hear things as well. It was like, he's not to be trusted. And I was like, oh, what? Like, is there another mic in the room? You know what I mean? But that mic was really loud in my head. He's not to be trusted. And so that's why rule number one in the house is your wife.
Listen, I had to learn this too, right? So when my wife and I, we've been married now 25 years. When we first got together, she would, this is how it showed up for us. We'd be driving and she'd say, Ken, you need to go left. And I'm like, no, I know the road. I've been on this road a million times. I'm going right. It's faster. And inevitably, we would hit traffic and what have you, right? We did this maybe 7 or 8 times. And I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to her. And sure enough, the same thing happens, right? Turn left. I want to go right. I said, okay, I'm going left. And sure enough, we get there 30 minutes early. And I thought,
record time.
Record time. We did that a number of times. I finally was like, okay, I am making a point to listen to my wife's intuition, which I do too today. She listens to mine because I have very developed intuition now. Yeah. But we listen. It's not a place of being right. It's about a place of being in a knowing, or in a, we call it truth, but I would say it's more of a sense of just knowing this is right. Yeah. And we do this from the foods we put in our bodies.
Correct. I want to talk about this because this is a big.
When we travel, we're always tuning in. We're always tuning in. Conflict reduces.
Right.
Harmony increases. Coherence. Right. We have a coherent universe. It's just totally in harmony. But we can start to tune into that coherence as we get out of our head, and we allow ease and grace to start to flow in our lives in a greater way. And
I love it.
You know, if you're in a relationship right now, I just throw this to your audience. If you're in a relationship right now and there's conflict, you're part of it.
Right.
At least 50%, maybe more. And it's taking ownership and setting intention and realizing that you won't get out of conflict with the mind that created the conflict.
Right.
There's a part of you that has to shift your paradigm, shift your thinking. So the first step that I ask people to do is become conscious. Identify what needs to change. Identify what needs to change. Well, conflict. We got too much conflict. Okay. Doesn't mean your partner's the wrong partner. Doesn't mean you're the wrong partner. Doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It means you're in a place that you are being called to grow, to learn, to evolve. Right? Yeah. And then, you know, for me, when I tell my clients, you know, go research, find yourself a coach. I mean, I don't know who in this world, I can't think of anybody that's really a wealthy person, meaning wealthy, not only financially, but mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. They're not, they're on tons of drugs. They're not, you know, 100 pounds overweight. They're balanced in their lives. Okay. You know, they've got that. I don't know anybody like that doesn't have a coach.
Exactly.
Maybe you do, but I don't.
Yeah. We were, just talking about that on an earlier show she was talking about the first time she invested $20,000 in herself that wasn't attached to a degree of some sort from a university, and how it was like this, oh my gosh, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? You know, versus we always think, oh, we need that college diploma, that degree, that whatever, master's, doctorate, whatever it is. And then, but learning for the rest of life and having a mentor, a guru, a coach, whether it be business, life, or one who combines both, because to me, I think they're all, for me, it's you being you. It enhances everything. Your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your business, because you're grounded in your beliefs, your desires. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that some people maybe misunderstand, or like I've had a few people ask me, oh, okay, in a networking group, I had to be in a category that's like really tiny. So it's a life coach, which is not what I put myself in. And I was like, okay, this box is rather small. I'm suffocating, right? Because I'm not into labels. But a few people said, oh, so your people, like the people you help, they're miserable? No, actually, the people I help are the ones that walk into a room and you would be going, oh my God, I want what they have. And they looked at me like I had six heads. I said, I attract very affluent, high achieving, success driven people who realize there's more than just this degree they got 30 years ago. They're constantly evolving and transforming and playing and experimenting with other ways of being and showing up and really kind of being stretched, right? In a business, you were talking about what they knew earlier. Would they have, that growth, that potential, they see it versus.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, you're inspiring me. I mean, because, I attract very successful business owners. I get a lot of them in their mid-40s where they've created some wealth. They've created some really amazing businesses. But what happens is that they get stuck. They get to a point where they're either going to work 17, 18, 20 hours a day, or they're going to have to stop growing. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're stressed out. They're worried but they get and they're smart. They're really smart people. I attract, intellectuals. And some doctors. I've worked with a lot of doctors over the years, and PhDs, and well, what happens though is that business owners come to me. They're having an employee issue, they're having a turnover issue, they're having operations issues, they're having when I first get to them, I said, listen, they think that they need to go hire somebody new, right? I said, don't hire anybody. We got to change you first, because who you hire will just create more problems from the paradigm that you're hiring from. If you want to go to the next level, you want to go from 10 million to 20 million in your business in revenue, then you have to change. And when they finally get that, everything changes.
I'm going to add one thing.
Go ahead.
I'm going to add one thing to that, Ken. I use that same information to my clients who are single and who want to start dating. Right. It's like, no, don't go out there, because what you're going to attract and what you're going to accept is very different than once we work on you. And I had someone come back to me recently and go, I get it, because she was on dating apps. And I was like, yeah, no, not now. Please, you're not going to like me for this, but please, let's not do that now. Let me help you with some other things. And she's like, I was a little annoyed with you, but here I am months later. And she just joined a charity pickleball event where it's, mixed doubles. And the woman said to her, would you like to be on, paired? It could be mixed doubles, or I guess same gender. And she said, oh, no, I'm single. I'd love to be paired with someone to play pickleball with. And she goes, see, now I get it, because now I'll meet somebody or several people through this pickleball charity event, and versus online dating. And I was like, yes, this is what I see for someone with a like-minded, being outdoors, playing, expelling some energy, being out in nature, being social with other people. And it's exciting. I think when we do that in our business, in our relationships, in friendships, it really opens up possibilities.
Everything changes, Gina. Everything changes for them. And I love what you're saying, because it's like, okay, so the dating app wasn't working for that person. Okay, got it. So they're going to go another way. But they didn't know the other way until you did the inner work, until that inner work comes. And for some, it's not about a dating app. It's about what you're writing on the dating app. It's about what you're putting out. It's also about boundaries, right? I know there's, one of the women that my wife modeled before we met is this woman taught her to ask basically 3 questions before she'd even date, right? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And she had to shift inside to even be able to ask those questions, because they were courageous questions. But what she did, she was able to screen, and eventually Judy found me as a result of working through that. So it's an inside job. That's really what we're talking about here. Right. Inside job. And if more as an audience listening right now, what I suggest is this: think about this. Think about in your business, in your health life, in your relationship life, in your family life, in your spiritual life, and think about all those areas. And, Gina will do this with you, or I would do this with you if you come to us, and we'll take a deeper dive. But just think of those areas, and think about which one of those areas that that you really need to change and improve and develop and grow. If you'd like to connect with me, you can go to my site at kendfoster.com, kendfoster.com, And there's two things you can do there. There's one, I have a free gift form, Gina. It's my release process, which helps them to take off the programming that we talked about earlier. And it's a free gift, take you 3-4 hours to complete it, but it'll take a deep dive to help you release some of the old programming. So that's on my website for free for anybody that would like to go there. Also, for limited time right now, I have a complimentary session up there with me. So if you'd like to come in and experience a little bit about what we're talking about here with me, great. Go to KenDFoster.com. And if you hear this in time, it'll still be up there and you'll be able to get a session with me. How cool is that?
Yep. And all Ken's information will be in the show notes as usual. So you can just click there. But Ken, I'd love to pull a card from the Opening to Possibilities deck. These are journal prompts, contemplation, and conversation starters. Let me do just one last shuffle. So tell me when to stop. I'll start thumbing through, and then you tell me which card. Okay.
Stop. Stop.
Is it,
stop.
Is it this one? The one before.
The one before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There you go. That's the one. Yeah.
It's courage. Yeah. Yes. So.
Wow, is it really?
It sure is. It sure is. It's always the right word. I'm telling you, it always is. Yeah. So courage comes from deep. Yeah. Right. The courage to change everything. Yeah.
That's my latest book, right?
I love it. Yeah. So. Courage comes from deep within your soul. When were you asked to be courageous? What did you experience? And what did you learn?
That's really good. That's really good. So courage comes from within our soul, and courage is an energy, it's a power, it's a force. It's not a thought. So for me, when the last time that Courageous Act came into my world was probably yesterday when I finalized our trip to India. We're taking going to a friend's wedding down in the southern part of India, then going up to the northern part of India and traveling around for seeing some of the royal palaces, the sacred sites, the Himalayas. So that would be it.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. And may you travel safely and have a beautiful time. I think it's you and your wife going to a friend's wedding, or who all will?
Yeah, we're going to a friend's wedding, and it's Indian wedding. Should be amazing. Actually, a Muslim wedding, which is really cool, and it's arranged. It's an arranged wedding, so we're way outside our comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I encourage. Right, that's what courage takes us outside of our comfort zone and into a completely new paradigm.
Yeah, and it's so magical.
And it's magical. And it's miraculous.
It is magical. Absolutely. There's so many fascinating things about the Indian culture and each of the different religions that you find there. Mark and I, so on my bucket list was to be able to attend an Indian wedding. We were able to do that. It was a year ago, actually, last month. And new friends of ours here in California, their daughter got married. And we actually met them through their daughter, who was always walking their adorable dog, who has since passed. And one day the parents were walking the dog and were like, "Oh, hey, do you know Nidhi? Because I think you," And so we became friends and went to her wedding. And I mean, the clothing, the jewelry, the food, the music. I mean, a lot of it we didn't understand because it was not in English. The drumming, when we got to the reception to dance, I was in my glory because it was so elegant, beautiful, and luxurious. It was everything I think that we should be able to experience in a rich life. And I'm not talking about financially rich. I'm talking about this depth and this, the designers who made these pieces and the hands that sewed on each of these stones and sequins and pearl. I mean, just it was. So I can't wait. You may have to come back on the show, Ken, so that we can hear all about all about your learnings. And but thank you so much for being with me today. We have so many things in common. When you speak, I laugh and think, oh, maybe you're my brother I hadn't met yet until Cheryl connected us. And I have to thank Cheryl again for doing that, because it's fun to have these conversations that are deep in meaning and inspire others. So thank you, Ken, for being who you are and doing what you do.
Thank you for that compliment. And you feel like my sister too. We have a lot to talk about. Continue our conversation.
Absolutely right. So please do reach out. Ken is on par about being able to change that one facet in your life where you feel like something may be missing, you want more, you want a different energy around it. And I promise you, once you shift that one thing, everything starts to open up. Things start to unfold in a way that feels so magical, like me being invited to that wedding that was just so I don't know, it was like a fairy tale. And so please reach out to Ken and I. Our information is in the show notes. Listen, you can do this journey alone. But the truth is, if you're a little bit impatient like the New Yorker in me, it's so much faster, easier, more graceful to have a light ahead of you, shining the light so that you can make those big, courageous steps. Until next time, be exquisite.